Hello, so welcome to our look at the dance A-level at Hills Road. My name is Helen and I'm in the dance studio at the moment, and with me is a previous student who's sort of finished before COVID kicked in, and that's Leonie, and she's in our upstairs studio as well, just so you know where we all are. So we're going to start by just having a little look at the course itself. So, as I say, I'm Helen, and we're going to just walk through the dance course, and then we'll show you some video footage a little later on of some of the work that we've achieved previously. So what would you expect on the Dance A-level course? Well, we hope that this course will expand on your physical skills. That's through sort of technique, and we'll come on to that in a little while, to develop you creatively, to help with your performance skill and therefore with your confidence levels, to appreciate dance through like looking at it theoretically as well, and that would help you appreciate dance in a much broader context. There's also a lot of transferable skills that come with studying dance. So things like being able to research and teamwork, problem solving, leadership, organisation and meeting deadlines are all things that will help you not only if you go into the profession in some way as a dance practitioner, but also in many other sort of courses and areas of study. And then the other thing is trips and visits, which are quite an important part of the course. So the actual examinations requirements are 50% practical and 50% theory, but we obviously do have a more practical based element to the course because some of the theory we also deliver through a practical means, but we'll come on to that a little later. So just in the corner of this slide, you'll see a link to a YouTube video. And I suggest you maybe have a look at that in a little while. That actually shows you our facilities in a little bit more detail, shows you some students working in the spaces, and just gives you a little bit of an overview and a bit of a walkthrough from the student perspective of what they might be seeing and what they might be doing. So let's look at the practical course content first. So for year one, there will be regular classes in choreography. So you're starting to learn about how to structure movement and all those, the sort of toolbox of things to help you create. You'll also get contemporary and jazz technique classes as part of the course. Part of that element is to allow you to create work yourselves. So there will be practical tasks that you do to create choreography either collaboratively or individually as that year progresses. And that's to give you experience ready for year two. So in year two, we continue with that input on the technique and the choreography, but our focus shifts more to the elements for the exam. And that's to sort of give you plenty of time to develop your pieces of coursework to be the best that they can possibly be. So across both years, you get participation in two performances at least each year. So one in the first term and one in the second. And sometimes we try and fit another one in the third term as well. There's quite a strong link between the theory and practical elements of the course. That's often aided by workshops with visiting practitioners, which we try and get in whenever possible. So that varies quite a lot from year to year. And then we also have our options initiative, which is additional technique and conditioning classes, and that varies a little bit according to who's available for teaching and what spaces are also available to us to run those. So if we move on to the theory side of the course, so this goes in parallel with the practical. In year one, we study the British independent contemporary dance scene. So we look at really exciting works by practitioners that are working in the industry right now. So people like Matthew Bourne, Jasmine Vardaman, Akram Khan and Sidi Labi Chikawi. And we look at their works, we analyse the different components, and we sort of assess how the genre as a whole is also developing. In year 2, it's a similar idea in that we look at an area of study, but in year 2, we look at the study of Rambert from a historical perspective. So there we're looking at the works of Robert North, Richard Alston, and Christopher Bruce, but we do a similar thing about learning about their works, but the focus here is a more historical view of the sort of major changes that the company went through to make it what it is today. Across both years, we develop writing skills, so analysis, comparison, observation, but it's a very specific style of writing on the dance course, and that's what we sort of develop across those two areas. So theory and practical, as I mentioned, are linked quite closely. So we develop these analytical skills because you need a very precise writing style in order to do the written paper. And the written paper is a 2.5 hour exam, including 3 essay questions and a range of short answer questions. So we need to be really precise and succinct. So the ways that they link are through applying what we see of the works and then putting it into our practical, whether that's by recreating repertoire or whether it's developing our own work based in that sort of style. And then those things can come through very clearly in the solo element in the practical exam, as well as in the quartet, which I'll come on to in a little while, but in the elements for that practical component of the exam. And it does give us that deeper understanding of the choreographic process and helps you as a student develop your own creativity as well. So we're going to show you some footage of some just general practical work that we might do as part of our year. And these were actually filmed a few months ago now during COVID, just to show how we managed to carry on. So our first one is a general warm-up, and then we'll go through some other sections. So Lainey, I don't know if you want to just talk us through what these elements are and how they sort of helped with your studies.
So these were from a workshop I came back to help facilitate this year. The general warm-up is something you can sort of get insight into exercises you'd use quite regularly, tends to be geared either towards jazz or contemporary based on the content of a lesson. Our second video is a workshop on a piece called Ghost Dances by Christopher Bruce. So when we were studying, we had a similar workshop ourselves, and it was useful to both for the theory, because as part of the essays you have to have movement examples that you can describe, and so being taught movement and rep from the piece just gives you sort of an example you can use to analyse and understand from that point of view and put down onto paper. But you also have the opportunity to build a solo around that practitioner or a quartet, and so it gives you movement vocabulary you can use for that as well with the practical, or sort of the general movement style is much easier to understand when you've had a workshop in that practitioner style. Our last 3 videos are from workshop on American musicals, musical theatre jazz. So these are practitioners, again, that you can choose for your solo. And it essentially just gives the students an opportunity to try the different styles, the different practitioners, find what suits their specific strengths, and gives them some movement vocabulary again to start their solo, what they might develop, things they might decide to include and expand upon. So that's sort of an overview of the videos that are coming up now.
Thank you, Lainey.
2, forward, 2, in 1, side, front, side, front, side, front, side, hold centre,
And twist. And down. And open. Onto the knee, and you lift to stand and roll, and arabesque.
5, 6, 7, 1. step, spin, and 1. Flick, ball change, 1, 2, 3, 4, flick, step, turn, hit, and a 1, 2, 3, 4, ball change, kick, and turn, and 1. Up, 6, 7, and up.
So I hope you enjoyed that snippet of our classwork. So now moving on more to the specific requirements of the course in terms of exam. So the 3 elements that you need for your practical coursework are a solo in the style of a specific practitioner. So Lainey, would you like to sort of give us an insight into what you did for yours, please?
So for the solo, we had the opportunity in lower sixth to produce a sort of mock solo. So for that year, I chose a musical theatre practitioner called Gene Kelly. And having done pieces like Singing in the Rain, he utilises a lot of tap, which is something I have quite a bit of experience in my sort of background. So I chose to put that into my solo, and there were a few people in our class who had potentially gymnastics or different experiences, potentially tango, and there were practitioners they could choose to really forefront that. And then in my second year, I chose Christopher Bruce, and so I watched lots of his pieces, Rooster, Ghost Dances, Swan Song, etc., and I drew specific movements from each of them and stylistic qualities to replicate, and choreographed sort of my own version of what a piece of his might look like. And it was a really exciting opportunity with Christopher Bruce especially to sort of develop my understanding of that practitioner, because they're practitioners I quite look up to and quite enjoy watching. So it's quite nice to sort of put yourself in their shoes and just see how they create and have a go at it yourself, really. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. And then the second element is the performance in a quartet. So there's no sort of restriction with this, as long as it falls under the key banners of either ballet, contemporary or jazz, that you can do an abstract piece, you can have a narrative, it can be the style that suits you best. So in this piece, they're looking at skills that are teamwork skills, really. So things like your spacing, your timing, your musicality, how you work together as a group. So each of these 3 elements are looking at you holistically. They're looking at you as a dancer, as a performer, and as a creator. And then the final piece, which is the sort of bigger element of the 3, is the group choreography. So this is individually choreographed on a group of other dancers. So again, Lainey, would you like to give this sort of student perspective on how you found that element, please?
So for the group choreography, we were given 3 questions to choose between. So our year we had a historical period we could talk about, a scientific, I think it was like a scientific paradigm we could use, or language, the idea of recipes. And I chose a historical period called the Golden Age within America. And I chose to do a quintet, used 5 dancers from the lower sixth at the time. And it was just really exciting, again, to sort of step outside of what we were creating and sort of get a almost bird's eye view and be able to edit things from that point of view, sort of more similar to the approaches the practitioners we study would take in terms of not always being in the piece and having an outside view of it. And because a lot of the students, a lot of our peers used each other in our pieces, some of us had the chance to be in a piece, in exam piece in our lower sixth, which prepared us really well for the final exam in last year, because we sort of knew what to expect as well. So there was a lot of preparation for that, and it was just really, again, a lot of fun, very exciting to be involved with, really.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to just have a look at some video examples of solos. So these are a varied selection just to show the sort of range, but this is by no means the exhaustive. So the first one is a solo, a contemporary one in the style of Richard Alston, and this is in silence. The second one is in the style of Sidi Labi Chikawi. So he's known for his sort of flexibility particularly. And the dancer performing this had a real gymnastic and sort of acrobatic background, so that really fitted in well with his type of style. So she was very clever in choosing this practitioner to show her strengths. The third one is more of a jazz-based one, and it's by the style of Bob Fosse. And then the last one is Robert North style. So this one actually is a bit more of an eclectic one because he's normally known as a contemporary choreographer, but he also does mix styles together. And in this particular piece, he did a jazz-based piece called Lonely Town, Lonely Street. So this student has taken different elements from across that piece, which is quite a long piece, and brought them all together to show real contrast between those different elements of jazz. And the jazz that is presented in that one is more the style of a practitioner called Matt Mattox, which is the style that Robert North was working in. So here we have those pieces, and as I say, just look out for the variety across those 4 solos.
और सावन उड़े अंबर में पिया मिलन की बेला में क्यों रुत बदले बेमौसम।
You know how people have these little habits that get you down? Like Bernie. Bernie liked to chew gum. No, not chew. Pop. So I came home this one day and I'm really irritated and I'm looking for a little bit of sympathy. And there's Bernie lying on the couch, drinking a beer and chewing. No, not chewing. Popping. So I said to him, I said, you pop that gum one more time. And he did.
Now walking down the road of life, looking for direction. Sometimes my mind gets so mixed up, I can't tell lust from affection. Gonna stop into a roadside church, get my mind to rest, and Lord Jesus, help me get my soul together. Wake up knowing that I got to do without you. I don't want you all the time.
So we're next going to have a look at some footage from choreography and performance pieces. So the top 4 here are from last year's group who sort of managed to get all this filming done literally the week before lockdown kicked in. So their 3 questions were sort of an exploration of architecture and the Museum of Tomorrow. Second question was about a poem and the sort of the words and the imagery evoked in the poem. Then it was about the stories of Gulliver's Travels. So each of these 4 pieces are exploring those. So we have the 2 that are looking at the Museum of Tomorrow, 1 on the poem and 1 on Gulliver's Travels. And again, there's a mixture here of using their peers within their own cohort, but also using dancers from lower 6, and on a couple of occasions using extra dancers who have come in to support them in terms of they're either in the college elsewhere or they know them from their own dance school and they have been able to bring them in to work with them. And then the final piece is an example of the quartet. So this was a piece, the picture that you see here is from that piece. It was a piece that they choreographed themselves. So for the performance piece, anyone can choreograph that. It can be the students, you can do it collaboratively, or it could be something that an outside practitioner comes in and teaches. So quite a lot of variety open to you there. So we'll look at some footage. So just bear in mind that there are 4 group choreographies and 1 quartet performance piece.
Still bleeding, you're the lucky ones. 'Cause most of our feelings, they are dead and they are gone. We're setting fire to our insides for fun, collecting pictures from the flood that wrecked our home. It was a flood that wrecked this home. Shots fired. Pain is what you desire. If the pen is mightier than the sword, then how do we get here, my God? My God. Say liars blame the deniers.
So if we just have a look at the extra opportunities, so obviously you can just do the elements that are absolutely required for your course, or you can take advantage of lots of other elements that we try and incorporate as we go through those 2 years. We have, as we said before, approximately 1 show a term. We have an options program of additional classes. There's lots of trips and workshops that we go on, and we also have links to a separate organisation called Elevation Youth Dance Company. So, Lainey, I don't know if you'd like to sort of talk about those, because it's really the student perspective that is important across those extra opportunities. And I know you were involved with as many of those as you could be, weren't you, as we go through?
Yes. So my cohort, we were sort of pre-COVID, so the program was as it would normally be. And in our year, I believe our options program consisted of a ballet class. There was contemporary technique that was sort of more the basics. There was a commercial jazz type class. There was musical theatre jazz, which actually towards the end of our time was changed into an audition preparation class. There were a few kids in our year who wanted to go into sort of vocational places, so there was an audition prep class for those people. And also a fitness class called Pound Fit, which is physical activity with weighted drumsticks, and it's just a lot of fun and really like good for conditioning and those things. So those are the main opportunities that I took advantage of on a sort of week-to-week basis. Then trips and workshops, we had a whole bunch. The ones that stick out are Matthew Bourne. So yearly he does a Christmas production, and we went both of the years that I was here. I think that's a regular occurrence. We saw Hofes Schechter twice. We saw Jasmine Vardaman and JV2 as well. We saw Akram Khan when released Giselle. So those are probably the key ones. And because we were writing about these practitioners, it was just really useful to get an overview of what the atmosphere is like when seeing the production, because you can write about the set, the costume, the music. You can write about all of those things. So seeing how they tie together was really useful. We also saw Sutra. And so, yeah, those are the key ones that stand out for trips and workshops. We also so I took part in Elevation Youth Dance Company. So they're a youth dance company in Cambridge that are sort of based at Hills Road. And it was really nice to sort of be able to work on some bigger projects with people of a similar age from a few different places. And I mean, for me, it meant that I could stay at college after my lessons and go straight into that. So it was nice and like handy that it was here, but it was a really nice atmosphere in the company as well, and it was a very productive couple of years. We went to the Fringe in 2019 with one of the projects they'd done, and it was definitely something I would suggest auditioning for and trying to attend if you can, because it was just a lot of fun, and it helped me develop as a dancer as well.
Thank you, Lanny. So on the sort of other broader college perspective, we also offer dance enrichment, and so this year we've been doing a contemporary dance sort of group, and that we have tried to keep going across the sort of either online platform or in person. So we're hoping that will continue in person next year as well. But there is likely to be other dance enrichments too, which are sort of termly basis. There are student productions quite often that you can get involved in, and there's additional drama opportunities. There is sometimes a musical. I know, Lainey, you were involved in that as well, weren't you? So you had quite a full programme when you were here. Do you want to just very, very briefly talk us through what you did there?
So I did my first Enrichment. I did the musical, and our year we had Sister Act, it's a lot of fun, and it really, for a lot of the people in our year, that was where they made their core friendship groups, because there were quite a few kids from drama and dance, but also from all around the college, a range of subjects, and it just meant meeting sort of quite like-minded people. Everyone was sort of in the same boat in that it was sort of week 3 or 4 when we started rehearsals and auditions. And it just was a really positive way to start my experience at Hills Road and get to know the college, where to go for what, all of those things, whilst working towards something that we then got to show to family and friends or whoever wanted to come and see it. So it was a really good way to sort of get actively involved in college life, really.
Thank you. So we're nearly coming to the end here, but I would just say, if dance is your passion, if you really love dance, whatever aspect of that, whatever style or technique you do, you can really thrive on this course. It will challenge you, it will make you sort of step out of your comfort zone a little bit, and it will help you achieve your goals. Lainey, would you like to just tell us, obviously you're now studying dance as an undergraduate, so would you just like to sort of give us an insight into how you feel this A-level course has helped you in that transition to undergraduate study?
Of course. So my university course is similarly to this one. The delivery is very practical. So I have around 18 hours of practical contact hours a week and then 2 hours theory. But our assessment is much more equal practical to theory, so there's quite a bit of independent study. So the transition from dance A-level to a dance degree has been quite smooth for me personally. I think that the writing style, succinctness of the essays has helped in a lot of my assessments. I found it quite easy to understand what's expected of me, and understand what I need to do and organise to get there. I also have found that at dance A-level, a sense of independent study is encouraged, and sort of research, looking into things for yourself, is encouraged but also supported. So you sort of learn how to do those things. How do I go about looking for what I want to find? And all of these things are things that I've seen. I find personally that transition has been easier for me and my peers who had the opportunity to do dance A-level than for other peers who unfortunately didn't get that opportunity. So it's just really sort of almost like a middle step between sixth form and university. It just makes that transition a lot smoother, I have found, and it really helped me settle in to my studying and to research and all of those things. So it's been really useful.
Thank you for giving us that insight, Lenny. So we're nearly at the end here. This is just an overview of the sort of statistics of our exam results. And then this is an insight into where are people now? What have they gone on to do? So we've had a lot of people go into professional dance, into vocational colleges, as well as university colleges. That sort of, we always get a proportion of our students go on to do that, whether that's contemporary dance, musical theatre, professional dance, whatever that might be, choreography specifically as well. People going into more creative industries like fashion and makeup, and sort of film studies, those types of more creative things. Education, we often have people, particularly on primary education, and physical education. The past year, we've had people go on to do economics and linguistics at York University. We've had people who are now midwives at the Rosie in Cambridge. So the course doesn't limit you in sense of what your sort of further ambitions are, but just remember what those transferable skills are giving you. The art of communication, the art of confidence, being able to be a part of a team, but also being able to be a leader when required. And all of those things you will get from this course, whether you decide to go into dance and take that into your professional life, or whether you take a different path completely. So that sort of brings us to the end. We're always available to answer any questions, so you can always email the college if you've got anything specific that you want to know. And I would just encourage you to have a little look at the YouTube link that was on the second slide, and that will show you a little bit more about the facilities. Obviously, you can see the studios in the background here. We're very lucky to have these beautiful spaces, and it will show you other areas where we have our main our big sort of whole class sessions are in the hall, with sprung floor, mirrors, etc. But we've also got a lot of other facilities, including the theatre and things, and you can have a look at those on there. So I hope that's given you a good insight into the course. And I say, if you've got any questions, then do drop us an email. In the meantime, hopefully I will see you in the future sometime. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you.